Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this special edition where we're going to look at investing in Romania. I guess all of us have spent the last 18 months sort of diversifying and adapting and surviving and thriving through COVID. So let's get down to some sort of nitty gritty going forward. One of the fastest growing economies in Central Eastern Europe, Romania represents a wealth of opportunities for UK companies in many sectors. Romania's growth was pretty strong in 2019, and I think we saw the final quarter 2020 was a surprisingly good one, even better than prediction. So good shape, we could say. Strategically is obviously well positioned, part of the EU, and Romania does offer a big investment opportunity, and we're going to hear a little bit more about that and in terms of the size of Romania in the SEE market as well. So talking about the UK, there are currently opportunities here for many sectors. Agriculture obviously is a common one, FMCG, construction, infrastructure, related services, power and energy, education, technology, the list goes on. So to discover more, I'm delighted to introduce three experts from the real estate, from the IT, and from the legal world to look at the general market outlook for Romania, opportunities, of course, for UK companies. We're going to have a little case study of a company doing business in Romania, I understand, and really look at the assistance and advice. And we're going to give you some good, proper, real advice today, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm delighted to have our three guests with us. There will be a Q&A session, so you will have an opportunity to post questions, I do believe, on the platform here. We are live on Facebook as well. So if you're on Facebook and you want to put a question in there, Anna and Stefan from the BRCC will pick that up and we'll share it with our experts towards the end of the hour. Okay, here they are. Delighted to introduce firstly Cristiano Pambukcian. I think that's nearly correct. I don't think that's a Romanian name, is it? But
no.
Commercial manager for Entersoft Romania. Cristiano has more than 25 years working experience in different sales and client service roles, mostly in the IT and market research areas. Now she manages directly and indirectly a portfolio of almost 100 clients of all sizes from all activity domains. She also bought into Entersoft's portfolio, one of the biggest FMCG companies in the world. Maybe she'll reveal that a little bit later. Cristiano, big warm welcome. Nicholas Hammond, an old friend of mine, managing director, Hammond Partnership Law Firm. Nicholas is an English solicitor who has been working in Romania and practicing law since 1990. So before a lot of you watching this were born. Prior to his arrival in Romania, he managed a major law firm based in the city of London, decided to open up an office in Eastern Europe. And I guess, Nick, the rest is history. And finally, another old friend of mine, but a young one, Bogdan Kanjay. He's a managing partner, business development for Fortim Trusted Advisors, which is an exclusive alliance partnership of BNP Paribas Real Estate in Romania. He's a highly experienced professional in the office and commercial real estate sector here, and during his career has assisted a number of clients, concluding numerous office leases, transactions, working with a broad range of landlords, occupiers, investors, and developers. So I told you, ladies and gentlemen, we've got the best for you today. Bogdan, I'm going to come to you first, if I may. Let's just touch on the real estate and tell us a little bit about, because your world has changed a little bit. Tell us a little bit about what's happening in Fortim Trusted, as a Fortim Trusted Advisor, and what's happening there. And please give us a quick snapshot of the commercial, the residential, the retail, I guess land, real estate as well, and what's happening right now. And then we're going to dig in a little bit deeper and bring Nick in.
Okay, let me just grab a sip of water because it's a lot to talk about. Hi everyone. Thank you for having me, Colin. As you pointed out, I am overseeing and helping our different departments grow, and we'll be talking about what is happening all across the segments of real estate industry in Romania. For those of you watching and are really interested in numbers, I've delivered to the British Chamber a set of documents which they will share as a follow-up, and I will be sharing right now with you one of them, and I hope you can see it. This is our yearly Investing in Romania guide for real estate. So here you will have the numbers that will support your, say, current or future business case for investing here. I will not insist too much, but only on the key points. 2019 was a very good year for Romania, and you know that 2020 was a very bad year for everyone worldwide. Jumping into the office market, I would like to say that it's been the most affected by COVID, because no company wanted to deal with quarantining their offices and having people not feel safe where they work. In Romania, the downfall was about 60% of transactions. So we're only down to 270,000. Because there are people watching from England, I just want to say that the market in London, where the inner London is 21 million square meters of office space. Compared to that, Romania is, as you saw, only 4.6 million, and Bucharest is around 3.5 million of that. The second biggest market for office in Romania is Cluj-Napoca, which is only 300,000. So, okay, there's a big disparity compared to the West, but when you compare it to, and this is another material made by our research department, which we will share, compared to the region, we are providing very good coefficients. So the office market in Bucharest still has a lot of room for growth. The yields, referring to the investment market, are very competitive compared to the region, and we have 7%, which is the highest, and compared to Poland, Czech, and Hungary. Romania is the second largest population and market in the CE region, and the seventh largest in population in Europe. So investment market was not affected this year, although the office market was affected, and we see a lot of subleases coming up, landlords increasing their incentive. And by the way, very important for those of you watching and looking at Romania as a destination, it is currently a tenant market, which is very important for you to know. You have probably from anywhere, if you're looking to open an office, we're talking about anywhere from 15 to 20% landlord discount, asking compared to net, what you're getting net effective. On the land, on the agricultural land side, it's not, it's another market just as the investment one, which has not that affected. In the last 5 years, the agricultural land in Romania has more than doubled in some regions. So right now, anywhere from 3,000 euro to 7,000 euro per hectare, depending on the quality of the soil and the region. Around 30% of agricultural land in Romania is owned by foreign investors. Also, the retail market was very hit, as it was everywhere. governments are trying to pitch in right now to support and offer incentives to cover the losses for this industry. But this market did receive some incentives from landlords, meaning they because it was saw in some cases as a fortuitous case, and the fact that they could not have people come in and eat, although the most of them, as you know, shifted to takeaways. There were, let's say, there was a um, more sympathetic approach to retail from owners, from landlords, than to office, where it was the company's choice not to have people come to the office. Also relating to industrial, the industrial market was not affected by the pandemic. Also, the industrial market doubled in size in the last 5 years in Romania, approaching a total modern stock of around 4.2 million. On this year, last year only, 600,000 square meters have been thrown into the market, and there are big e-commerce and retail companies, fashion companies, taking up all that stock. And also the residential one was also a segment which was not affected. The working sites were okay, a bit. The works were a bit slowed down because of new regulations regarding how construction workers can work in a site with a mask or not, or distancing themselves, etc. But Romanian people have an appetite for investment. The preferred investment product for Romanians is real estate. So to own, to rent is the easiest and most accessible thing, and it offers also the lowest risk and the lowest return on investment. So summing up, retail the most affected, together with office, industrial, land, investment, and residential. They have a growing tendency in the last year. And for office, we don't see this as having a very
detrimental.
very big, very detrimental, very big impact, because Romania, office market in Romania was mostly driven by the IT and C sector. It is a huge hub for outsourcing and BPO. And these companies, when they came here, intended the scalability was a big important factor of their decision to come here. To have it as a shared service center for them. IBM, for example, has around 2,000 employees working in Bucharest in the shared service center. And their intention is to grow over time, to have more and more services outsourced here because of the access to talent, because that Romania is geographically at a crossroads of different cultures, and the languages spoken here are very diverse, and people are welcoming this diversity. So this is in office. Another factor, another reason why this is not going to last is we are already have re-entered with companies in discussions about office. So if in 2020 they didn't want to talk about it because it was not the hot topic, safety and cutting some costs and keeping the company afloat was the hot topic. This year, we think it will be, because now companies have to decide on a strategy of bringing people back and how they will work. And the major difference in office and how people will make decisions about the office is that in the past it was maybe the CFO and the real estate responsible who were deciding on the office space. We have 100 people, okay, we need 100 desks and 10 square meters per desk. There you have it. That's the surface we need. But at the moment, the decision about the office implicates more departments in a company. Right now, you're saying, okay, how many square meters do I need? I don't know. How many people are coming to the office? Let's ask the HR. And the HR says, I don't know. What departments can work from home? And IT, tell me, what are the departments that can work from home? And the decision about the real estate is the pandemic has forced this decision upon a broader range of people working in the company. And this is what companies are concerned right now. And I feel I've controlled the discussion sufficiently for the moment.
No, it's okay. I'm going to stay with you actually, just on that. Then I'm going to obviously later I'm going to come with Cristiano because we talked about her industry and we'll have a sort of an overview of that. And I want to bring Nick in a moment. But Bogdan, the presentation you gave does, and there's the slide there. There's a lot of optimism and confidence that we don't quite understand why it's all happening, or we do understand it, but that seems to be fueling a lot of investment, everything else. And I guess we look at the traffic in Bucharest, particularly over the last few weeks, has doubled now. So people are getting in their cars and I know, maybe with the kids at school or whatever's happening, but there's more traffic there. Just on the commercial real estate, it's interesting you said the retail was supported by the landlords. Again, on the office market, it wasn't so supported. The existing tenants haven't been supported. Just very quickly, do you see a knock-on effect of that? Is that sort of holding firm to say, no, we're not going to reduce the rent? Is that going to come back and bite them? Or was that a good strategy?
Okay, so when it comes to retail, you have restaurants, especially the big ones, which had a lot of like canteens of the sort in office districts, which have gone into insolvency or have to close down. But the interesting fact is that there were a lot of opportunistic investors waiting in for them to go bankrupt or whatever, to lose business in order to take over the space because it's a very well located, or to take over their equipment because it is technically a plug and play one. So we've had a lot of opportunistic occupiers approaching us saying, okay, I know this company wants to sublease it has an excedentary space. I want to talk with them and and maybe help them make a saving, and while I am helping myself have a Class A office at 60% of the cost.
Okay.
So there is a regarding so the landlords have been more the rebound is this what I've just said, that these gaps are being filled by other types of occupiers looking in the market. And when it comes to the office, landlords have been flexible, but in another way, not offering something for nothing, because we've made an agreement, we signed for 7, for 5 years, etc. And I made a business case of my own, taking into consideration that I would receive a certain fixed cash flow incentive, cash flow payment from you. I've built my financing around the cash flow that I'm receiving from you, my tenant. What I can give you is additional discounts if you are willing to prolong our agreement.
Okay.
So
a trade-off, kind of.
yes,
Yeah.
there have been some trade-offs, and because of that, over around 40% of the transactions made last year were renewals.
Okay. Okay.
That's so it's a big chunk.
Okay. So people are being opportunistic and adapting to it. Nick, let's come to you, because you know, there's people, there may be investors watching this or watching the recording of this, seeing the buoyancy, I guess, in many sectors, the confidence there. We've got some good role models with the UiPaths of this world out there as well, which is really putting Romania firmly on the map. So we want to invest. You know, tell us what, you know, we're going to mention that B word. I'm really sorry, but obviously post-Brexit, pre-Brexit, investors in Romania. Tell us a little bit. Tell us where you are with the Hammond and partnerships, and tell us a little bit about investing in Romania from a legal perspective now and ownership.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Well, everybody, it's nice to talk to you. Thank you to the BRCC for asking me to say a few words on this during this conference. Primarily, we are a commercial law firm, Hammond Partnership. As Colin said, I've been working in Romania now for 30 years. I've lived here for 25 years. My firm works in English and Romanian. After 25 years, I can actually say that I am totally not fluent in Romanian. I don't speak Romanian. I can read it, but I speak enough to get in trouble with taxi drivers and restaurants. So you can work in Romania without knowing Romanian. As Bogdan says, there is a lot of language capability in Romania. So if you're thinking of coming to Romania, don't think, oh gosh, what's the language issue going to be? You'll probably find it's a lot easier than you expect. You might even find that you're better understood here than you are in parts of England when you speak English. Having said that, I can say that over 25 years, I have seen the development of Romania from hardly any real estate development. I mean, the only offices we used to have were the old communist blocks. And in the last 10, 15 years, modern offices have developed and grown up, usually on the back of foreign investors. To be a foreign investor in Romania from a legal perspective is not difficult. For those of you who are not from, from those of you who are from Great Britain, the legal system in Romania is very different from the legal system at home. In England and Wales and Northern Ireland and Scotland, we basically work on a common law system. I appreciate that Scotland has its own different legal system. But we have a common law system, which relies, the thinking behind it is different. If you think about it, Europe was overrun from about 1066 to, I suppose, 1945 or even later. Countries were occupied by different other countries and became subject to country A today and country B tomorrow. Therefore, it was important that a written system of law was developed, so you knew, didn't matter which country, if you were subject to German or French Parliament, you had a code that you understood in your own country. The British Isles was never invaded after 1066, so therefore a common system throughout the whole of the country developed, which is why it's called the common law. And we exported that, of course, to America and Australia and New Zealand. Well, that's a side. So the basic principles of law in the common law system and in the code system are the same. Romania has a respect for the rule of law. There is a rule of law here. The courts are, in the majority of cases, independent. There is some influence on decisions, but there are influences on decisions in all countries. So I wouldn't say that Romania is any worse or England is any better than Romania. So you will hear stories of everyone saying, oh, this judge is corrupt, that judge is corrupt. All I can say to you is over 25 years, I've seen less corrupt judges than there were 25 years ago. 25 years ago, yes, there was corruption in the judiciary, but now it's improved. If you look at the laws that are being passed because of the influence of the EU, a lot of laws now are based on EU regulations and directives. Before Brexit, England was subject to EU law regulations and directives, and they were common to the European Union. So in fact, you are used to some of the rules and regulations that were enforced before Brexit. So when you come to Romania, you'll find in terms of employment regulations, in terms of IT regulations, e-commerce, these are regulations that you were used to up until Brexit. Brexit has caused an effect here, which you need to be aware of. First of all, dealing with residential or dealing with property. As members of the European Union, any European Union resident could own land and property. This, of course, has now changed because anybody from the United Kingdom is treated as a foreigner. So we are no longer members of the European Union, so we cannot own the land. It's part of the Romanian constitution. It says only EU members and Romanian citizens can own land. I make the point here, we're talking about land and not land and property, because the property can be owned, i.e. by property, I mean the building on the land, can be owned by an English person or someone from the United Kingdom. That's not a problem, but it's the land.
But very quickly on that, Nick, very quickly on that point, what about people, existing owners of land? How does Brexit affect them?
Well, according to the agreements that have been signed, if you were an owner of land before Brexit, you still are an owner of land. Just as you know, Colin, we've all had to reapply to be residents here, even though we had permanent residency before Brexit. So if you have a piece of land, you can keep that piece of land, it's not a problem, but you can't sell it. It's new investors who are going to have the problem. So what do? We go back to the old system, which was if you were from the United Kingdom or you're an American, you set up a company. There's no restriction. There's no restriction on the ownership of a company. There's no restriction on the management of the company, and there's no restriction on the capital to be invested in or by that company, because the company counts as a Romanian citizen. So if you're thinking of investing in Romania in real estate, then you're going to have to set up a company.
Okay.
There's a quite good company law. It was set up, it first came into existence in 1990. It's based on the French common company law. The thing to remember or thing to bear in mind in terms of that is in the common law countries, the company is run by the directors, who are given discretion by the shareholders to run the company however they want. That's because the legal theory behind the company is that I'm a shareholder, I give the money to the company, I appoint the directors, but they can do with it what they want because I trust the directors, and that's their job. The Romanian system is different. In Romania, the power that is basically in the hands of the directors lies in the shareholders. So there are many decisions that you would expect a director in a UK company to take actually require the decision of the shareholders. So if you decide that you want to buy another company, if you're a Romanian company, the administrator can't go off and say, right, I'm buying company X. He has to go to his shareholders in case it doesn't fit in with the business plan. The administrators of a company, which are the quasi-directors in the common law understanding of the position, their role is to implement the decisions of the general meeting of the shareholders. They're not supposed to, and I use the expression not supposed because of course they do, they are not supposed to deviate from the business plan that was set out by the shareholders. Every year there is supposed to be a meeting of all the shareholders where they get together and discuss and decide on the policy for the company for the next year. this has caused problems in the past, and I can remember when there was a bank, well, it's still in existence, set up by Mr. Jon Tiriac. This was back in the early 90s, and he had his first general meeting of shareholders, and over, I can't remember the exact number, but a number of Romanians had bought one share. Because they were all shareholders, they wanted to have their say. I think they had 300 shareholders standing up at the meeting, and it took 2 days, and they thought it would take 1 hour. So you have to remember that. That's just one of those little anecdotal stories of what goes on in Romania and what Romania is like. But once you've set your company up, it's simple.
Okay.
There are two types of main companies here. There's a thing called a limited liability company. And you'll hear people, when you come to Romania, they'll talk about SRL. Well, SRL means limited liability company. And that is the most common form of company that you'll come across in Romania. You can't have more than 50 shareholders. But in fact, a limited liability company is not like a limited company that you get in the United Kingdom. The SRL is more like a form of limited partnership. It's a company that is used to run, it was intended to be used as a company that was run by mum and pop. You had a shop, you'd have a SRL. Nowadays, because of its way it's set up, it's simple, it's quick to set up. It normally takes 3 days to set up a company. It has a minimum share capital of 10 euro cents. It doesn't have to have a bank account, which it used to have in the past. The only slight quirk in Romanian law in respect of a company is that you have to have a registered address, not a registered office. Registered addresses are the place where usually the revenue come to check your books and look at things. So every company has to have a registered address. Lawyers can provide a registered address for up to 1 year to enable the quick formation of a company. Then after 1 year, you have to change it. There are a number of companies that will lease you 1 square meter of land in their 1 square meter of their offices for you to use as your registered address. And if the revenue or anybody else wants to have a meeting, they'll give you the facility to a conference room, and they'll provide telephones and everything else. But this is how you get around it. Otherwise, you've got to change your registered office every year. And quite frankly, the only people that make money out of that are the lawyers and perhaps the accountants as well.
The accountants, yeah.
Well, the accountants are something, yeah.
I guess there are some accountancy firms who will, if they're doing your accountancy, they will be able to provide the square meter or the office address.
They have difficulty because they will have difficulty because their leases often won't allow subletting. Okay. And it's a sublet. Okay. So, as I say, I know of 2 organisations that do it. One actually is an accountant. One is a private company. It's just a way to make more money, if you want me. I want my opinion. But for an EU citizen, it's easy to open a company here and to run a business here. It's as I say, the company is registered 3 days after the papers are registered. There's no limitation on ownership, and there's no limitation on the administrators.
Okay.
If you are, and this is something else actually that UK people need to think about, that if you're sending somebody from England to work in your office in Romania, you're going to need a work visa, and you're going to need a work permit and a visa, because again, because of Brexit, we are deemed to be outside of the European Union. So that is another problem. In terms of bringing court proceedings in Romania, if for any reason you want to enforce a judgment in Romania, if the proceedings were started before the 31st of December 2020, you can enforce a judgment arising out of any of that court proceedings. But if you start court proceedings after the 1st of January, it has to be enforced in the old way, which is much longer. So, but you can enforce UK judgments in Romania, and you should get your money back.
Okay. Okay.
It's a big subject. All I can say to you is that Romania is a good place to invest in. I've seen it I've seen the investment now for 25 years. I think we're probably 1/3 of the way through the cycle to achieve the country being equivalent to a Western European country. So if you're thinking of coming to Romania, the chances are you will be successful, the chances you'll make money, and the chances are you'll be happy here.
Wow.
Your questions, there are many things. What?
You can't end better than that. And I know, Nick, you do produce a very informative newsletter. So maybe we'll link up with all the BRCC members and get a copy of that. Just on your point, by the way, about UK citizenship, some of us do have an Irish passport, so we're okay. So, Cristiano, thank you for your patience. Cristiano, thank you very much for your patience. We're going to stay on Nick's subject of investment because, we said at the offset how much investment and confidence has been in fintech, in blockchain, in the IT industry as a whole. And I think it's fair to say that go back 6 or 7 years ago, there was a financial incentive because there was a lower labor cost. And then we started seeing call centers, and then they've just flourished. It's been incredible the last 5 years. I mentioned UiPath. I think role models like that have had a big impact. So, Cristiano, let's talk about that industry. First of all, please tell us what's happening at Entersoft right now, and really sort of talk about that investment and those companies, UK companies in particular, of course, who are looking at Romania for its skill set, for its opportunities, investment. If you could touch on that as well. But again, thank you for your patience and welcome.
Thank you for having me, for inviting me here. I prepared a little bit previously, but I'll change the path just because Bogdan touched a subject that was very interesting for us Entersoft, and us as let's say a big team in the IT sector here. But before that, I'll just say a few words about Entersoft, please, just for you to know who we are and what we are doing. Okay.
That's good. It's that.
Okay, great. So for everybody to know, we are a software house. We don't sell third-party products. We sell only our own. Our headquarters is in Greece, but our products, different type of products, are present in 32 countries. And actually, 2 weeks ago, I need to change that slide. We just also tackled South America with 5 more countries. Wow. And touching again on Bogdan's presentation, for us last year was actually a great success because big companies in different sectors diminished their at least a part of what they targeted to do for the IT part of their company. So the budgets were lower, and because of that, we gain a lot of big companies in our portfolio. And you were asking me previously about what is the company I was mentioning. It's about a subsidiary of Unilever, one of the Unilever group, and they were so happy with us that we are finishing now with Bulgaria and also continuing in Romania again. Because compared to our competition, we did it in 3 months instead of 3 years, and a 0 cut from the offer, let's put it like this. So it was a very hard year. Everybody was working from home. We still pay our loan in the office. We didn't give up on that.
I'll put you in touch with Bogdan, maybe you can help.
Obviously, but everybody was working from home. Some of us also had COVID issues and so on. So it was a very challenging year from this point of view, because most of the implementations, 90% of the implementations were done remotely. And but we managed to get through. Sorry, my son is curious and he came here.
That's okay. That's okay. He's very welcome. He's very just while you're pausing there, I do have to mention if anybody's got any questions as we get into the last sort of 20 minutes, please put them in the chat room. Anna's just told me off on a message. So any questions, put them in the chat room. Sorry, Cristiana.
Yeah, so sorry.
Carry on.
And also to understand a little bit about us, we have all in our portfolio, all type of clients of all sizes and from all domains. And we are happy to have a lot more in the last year. And also regarding to your questions, from the fintech perspective, I'll also be talking about Entersoft from the Entersoft point of view, because our main products being an ERP, a CRM, retail, mobile, WMS, and so on. So software that manages the activity of the company overall. We obviously have also a financial part there, actually a big and very important chunk. It's the financial part, because in the end, all companies would like to have data that can be relied on and that would show what is going to happen and also what had happened, where did they do good, did wrong, and so on, obviously. So for us, it's important to have state-of-the-art technology. And since we developed the software, we need to keep up the pace, and this is why our solution is written continuously. We are rewriting our code yearly, chunks of it, in order to keep it up to date. And we use artificial intelligence and machine learning in our platform to support our client sales and financial activities by offering insights like what is going to happen with our cash flow, what is our churn, what is going to happen with our sales. So types of predictiveness that it's used. Practically, we model somehow the solution. It needs a little bit of a history to self-learn, but from a point on, it can help you by giving you insights based on your information. The same thing happens also with employees. For example, if I have a new colleague in my team, the solution helps him by offering information about next phase that he needs to do in order to do his job better and not look at every piece from himself. You also, if I remember correctly, asked about blockchain. For me, this is a very interesting and disruptive technology, which is used exclusively now, as far as I know, for financially purposes, and a little bit, and mostly on that, on big chains, obviously. It is used, and we are waiting for that, we as a company, for also sign smart contracts. But it's not finished yet. It's a very, let's say, from the legislation point of view, it's a very demanding part of blockchain, and we are waiting for it to actually happen. But since we are not into Bitcoins as a company, we are not using it for now. Hopefully we will. And also returning a little bit about what Bogdan said, and about how and what is happening here from the outsider's point of view. I'll give you a very personal example, and I think a lot of people can relate with this. My husband is a programmer, as a lot of people in Romania are, women and men. So, and he's working with various technologies with various companies around the world. And I would add to what Bogdan said, that we are skilled in our language, that we also provide high quality. We also have an European culture, and it's very important. I could see also the difference between in our company when we're speaking to locally or regionally or with United States. That's different from when, obviously, when we are speaking with somebody from, let's say, South America or Middle East and so on. So they relate to that, and it's easy to adapt and to understand. There's also a history of technology, history of universities here that helped, and a lot of people prefer engineering and so on. Some of them are quite good, as far as I understood. I'm an economist at my base, so I'm not an engineer. And what I would add to all this is the combination of these elements helps outsourcing. And you're also mentioning the legislation. That legislation is still in place, and it started in the early 2000, maybe 2001, 2002. And the parliament built on that little by little. And I would say thousands, and if we count outside of Romania, probably more companies were helped by it. And the issue that we are facing as an industry, it's still human resources, even if, and in this case, the parliament really did a good job, because they extended initially from 1 or 2 specialized university to many more, and now even high school people that prove that they can be programmers also can be included in the law. I try to be quick also to have time to answer the questions if I saw there are a few. And okay. If you have further question, or if you would like me to further explain something, please let me know.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. It's interesting what you're saying. You just touched on the talent pool, which is obviously for an investor perspective. As I said, Romania and Romanians have developed a wonderful reputation, particularly in your industry. So it has become a little bit of a magnet for that. But obviously, we have to make sure that the workforce is there. And what you're saying at the moment, we're in good shape. The feeder through the universities looks good, and maybe as Nicholas and I were talking earlier on, some of those repatriation of those skills, Romanians, will happen as well. Bogdan, just coming to you and to Nicholas as well. Just going back to what you said about it being a tenant's market, Bogdan, in the office industry, for instance. I guess the supply slightly outstripped the demand through COVID, but it didn't stop the investors. We saw companies like Speedwell, etc. We saw the cranes on the horizon in Cluj, in Iași, in Bucharest, etc. So where, as we go forward, I just want to touch on the banks. How, in terms of investors coming here, are the banks looking at it now from a supply and demand perspective? Does that affect their willingness to be supporting investors? Is it the same? Is it better? But Bogdan, do you want to answer? I'll ask Nick just to come in terms of how it happens as well.
So it's true that in 2020, there was a bit of uncertainty generated by all this. And although it was scheduled to have delivered around 200,000 square meters in the market, at the end of the year, it was only 150. This is because some of the projects have been postponed due to the demand that dropped very much, and because some of the investors decided they could convert their projects to a residential one, which is a more stable segment. For this year, for 2021, we are expecting around 270,000 square meters to be delivered in the market. Every big investor in the market, from ARFI to Morgan Stanley, by the way, is probably a sounding name that gives credibility to our market. We have a lot of South African, Israeli investors, also a Global Worth, which is a big investor in Poland. He's the #1, and also here. So what we see that for this year, 270,000 will be delivered, and very important, half of it is pre-let. So half of this, what will be delivered, is already been rented. This means that from a financing case, from a bank's perspective, it is sound. Most of the investors in the market have their projects financed, except for IKEA, which invests through its real estate arm called Vastint. They are building with equity. The others are getting financed.
So they're in pretty good shape out there. I will bring Nick in now. Just think about on the time side of it, but thank you for that, Nick. In terms of dealing with banks, getting investment, I'm giving you a plug because everything else you've said, I guess the best person to come to is you. On the banking side, is that a hurdle? Is that a fairly smooth operation, bearing in mind Brexit as well?
Money travels across borders. That's not so much a problem. As Bogdan says, I mean, there is a very buoyant office market. The banks that we have spoken to or have been in touch with are certainly very interested in lending for the right development. Again, it depends on them having, if there's a good pre-let, they'll do it. I mean, the banks here are as cautious as the banks in other countries. They would need to secure their income or their interest payments, and they need to secure their capital repayments. But having said that, there is still an appetite in some of the banks for lending. Some of the banks, no. Some of the banks have been badly burned, and even after 2014, they're still having to write off their bad loans. But with the right project, it should be possible to find a local lender for some, if not all, of the money that's needed.
Okay, but give you a call.
Something like that, but I won't lend you the money directly.
Okay.
That's Bogdan's job. He'll lend the money to you.
I love the way you're plugging each other here. Okay, we did have a request, Lavinia, but asked for the copies of the presentations, and Anna's kindly replied to that. So if anybody's looking to get a copy of the presentations from Cristiano and from Bogdan, I assume they are available before I say anything, but just contact Anna and she'll send those through to you. So as we sort of come to the conclusions, the three of you, I feel, listening to you, being an honorary, I should get my Romanian flag as well here and wave that one as well. But being, as me and Nicholas are honorary Romanians now, because we've been here such a long time, I feel great sort of excitement and optimism for the future. And I feel that I use that word confidence at the beginning. It seems to be, when you look at Poland, who was I think Bogdan, you can correct me on this, but we were in the real estate perspective, we were quite a way behind, but I feel that gap has closed quite significantly over the last sort of 18 months. And again, is it down to the confidence? So really, for potential investors out there and for people watching this, what is your advice for 2021? We're nearly at the second month of it. We're hearing that COVID is going to be with us a long time. I think we've kind of got used to it. I think we've navigated it in many businesses, especially in yours, Cristiana. Well, I guess in all three industries, you found a new path or a way through it. What advice would you be giving to people out there in terms of 2021 doing business in Romania? Cristiana, ladies first, could I come to you first?
What we are actually as a company trying to achieve internally, and we did already and it worked for us, would be adaptability. I mean, to try to find solutions to your challenges really fast, I mean, in a really timely manner, and to work on that path even more. And I mean, I saw a lot of companies going bankrupt or others closing their business temporarily. But I think that for every challenge, it's also an opportunity. It's true that for certain sectors, it's harder. I mean, we are in IT are obviously privileged, but I would go that way in adaptation and flexibility, also listening to our clients and finding solutions for them.
Mm-hmm. And your industry as a whole, as I said, I think it's evolved. The people, the talent coming through, is that matched with the support the government is giving to make sure that happens, or is that still a disconnect? What's your advice for the government if they're listening right now?
To keep giving the same, at least the same. To keep sustaining still the same type of legislation at least, and not to cut it, because 2 years ago there were some tentatives towards that direction, and they diminished them at least partially.
Yeah, yeah.
But as an industry, I mean, even if I work in sales, for me it went almost the same as the previous year. It was a little bit harder at the beginning. Also because the local companies preferred face-to-face. For the big corporations is the same thing if they have a Skype call or whatever, or a Zoom call, or if they meet face-to-face. Sometimes they even prefer that.
Okay. Okay. Well, I guess the message is for the government is don't change the legislation all of the time. Let's stick with what it is and build from there. Nick, I guess that's a big thing for you as well. I guess most people are coming to you for bureaucratic hurdles that they come across. Yeah, what's your message to investors out there? You kind of said it nicely at the end of your speech. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
I think I'd repeat it as well. What I would say, though, is for any investor coming here, is when you come here, do your research properly, analyze what you hear as though it was being given to you by somebody back from home. Don't get seduced by Romania. Romania is a very seductive country.
Excellent.
It has great possibility, great opportunities. And as a friend of both of us says, don't leave your brains at the airport. Bring your brains to Romania, analyze what you're going to do here as though you were doing it back in the UK or in France or Germany or from wherever you're coming. But approach it sensibly, carefully, and if you do that with the right advice and the right business, you'll be successful.
Okay. Okay. Well, I love the expression Romania is a seductive country, and I know exactly what you mean, and it's good advice that you're giving there, Nicholas. Thank you for that. Bogdan, my friend, it's a final word from you. I'm just checking. We've got 90 people as well on Facebook, so you've got a big audience there. So you're going to finish off with no pressure. Finish off with a bang. What's your advice from a real estate perspective to investors out there?
Thorough research is advised, as Nick pointed out, and I'm sure your chamber is here to help with that. At the moment, we are also discussing with a German company to enter the market, and we know that they are doing their homework, analyzing whether Cluj-Napoca or Bucharest would better be better suited. So what I'm saying, and I want to give to the audience again some numbers. You can come here, start right away. All it takes from a total cost of occupancy is just 200 euros per desk, and you're in a class A, have a nice office for your employees. You get excellent broadband connectivity. We are rated as, in all of the researches made, we are in top 3 best internet connection in the world. Those that are sponsored by the Swiss have Switzerland as rated as #1. But anyways, we have very the minimum wage minimum net salary, let's say, is one of the lowest. So it's offering you from a from a financial point of view, a lot of room. And I want to speak also about some downsides, because it wouldn't be fair. So there are a lot of things that are seductive about our countries, and some of them are related to cost. The ones related to cost and talent. This is the reasons why companies come here. By entering our market, you automatically have access to the European market, which is 450 million of consumers. And you also are eligible for European funding by being in Romania, which is 40 billion this year. And if it comes to real estate, offices are not sponsored, but if we're talking about agriculture, it is, you can get funding. If you want to build a clinic or a hotel, let's say, you get 50% non-reimbursable funding for those developments. So these are just some of the opportunities. On the downside, and it needs to be mentioned, is the fact that we have some way to go on infrastructure. We need to work more on our infrastructure related to transport of goods, whether by train, by highways, and this is something that our country has to work in. And you are going to maybe, depending on your industry and your activity, have more of a struggle with this or not, depending how dependent your activity is on that. So all I can say is you have my contacts. Come here whenever you come, whenever you can, and we can meet for a coffee. I'll invite you, Colin, and Nick, and Cristiano as well.
Yeah. No, you can call me Colin 10%. That's my name. But it's interesting, just very quickly on that point, Bogdan. We talk about the infrastructure. I guess sometimes we enjoy the journey when we're not working. So there is that. But I guess supply chain, very quickly, supply chain is changing. I guess through COVID, supply chain is becoming more regional now. I guess part of the buoyancy of the industrial market now is there's a lot more distribution hubs being created. People are buying products locally or regionally rather than from the Far East or Central or South America, etc. So I guess it is an evolving thing. And of course, then you still have the Trans-Făgărașan highway, which is always, if anybody's watching this and never been on it, that's another good damn reason to come to Romania. So Cristiano, Bogdan, Nicholas, thank you so much for that. Thank you all for the listeners live here and all I think we got to over 100 on Facebook as well. So a good audience. If anybody has any questions, any follow-up, the presentations, just send your questions through to Anna, and she'll let Cristiano, Bogdan, or Nicholas know. And I guess we'll touch this subject again soon. So thank you very much, the three of you. Thank you to Anna and Stefan for putting on today's webinar. And everybody stay safe, keep wearing your masks, and see you soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for having us.